In May I read 4,826 pages across 13 books. I listened to 26 hours of audiobooking, and my biggest book was The Rosefield by Philip Pullman, which came in at 622 pages. And my oldest book is The Little White Town of Never Weary by Jessie M. King, and this was published in 1917. Let's delve into the rest of the stats and then talk about each book I read last month. For the genre, I read 2 non-fiction books, 1 thriller, 1 sci-fi, 1 mythology, 1 historical fiction, and 7 fantasy books. Then for the nationality of the authors that I read 1 book from a French author, 1 Japanese, 1 Emirati, 1 Scottish author, 4 authors from the United States, and 5 English authors. Then for the format that I read the books in, so I listened to 2 books via audiobook, 3 books via ebook, 5 books through paperback, and 3 books mixed media. In all cases it was mixed between reading the physical book and reading the ebook. Now to delve into the books themselves. Before I delve in, I'm going to say that all of the content warnings that are needed are linked in an Excel or a Google Sheets document down in the description below. Please do go check them out if you need the content warnings for any books. I put them in for everything that I mention, and if you need them, they are there. The first book that I read this month, I shouldn't have read just yet. It doesn't come out until October this year, and so usually I like to read books 1 month before their publication month. It means that they're coming out at the right time for marketing, for the publishers who of course have sent me these books for free in return for reading and reviewing them. So that's usually what I like to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't resist and I read Tales from the Territory by Travis Baldree in May instead. This one I actually picked up via ebook. I got a proof of the ARC on NetGalley and just delved right in and didn't even look at the publication date, and then the physical ARC arrived and I was like, oh well, oopsie daisies. Regardless, I really enjoyed it. This is a collection of short stories set in the Legends and Lattes world. I have read 1 or 2 of them before, so they must have been included in the ends of other books. For example, there's like little add-ons, but there are 5 stories in all. 3 of them are brand new to me. 1 of them I am debating and 1 of them I definitely read before. I really enjoyed them. We get to see characters from across the 3 books that have been published so far, so it's not just the main characters from the first book from the coffee shop, and I really enjoyed getting to explore a bit more of the world and just see a little insight into their lives. Is why I love short story collections like this. This is just as fantastic as everyone is expecting. Another one from the folks over at Book Break, and that is Room for Rent by Noelle W. Ihli. This one is out already, I do believe, so if you wish to go and pick it up, you can indeed do so. And we follow a college student in the US as she lives in this weird ass house, which is the cheapest place that she can find for rent because she's broke, her parents don't support her, and she's trying to get through college and get her degree. And she's almost there. This is her last year. She's pushing through doing multiple credits to be able to finish, and there is something wrong with the house. It's not the house, it's the people in the house, but it's creepy, it's creeping her out, she doesn't feel safe, she's struggling to sleep, and she's trying to finish her university course at the same time. I will say that this one was pretty obvious. As soon as she met a certain character, I was like, well, it's obvious you're the evil one. And yet I still really enjoyed it. So if you need the twist to be a surprise, do take that into account, but if you don't, I still had a great time reading this. I enjoyed seeing how it was going to play out, even if it was obvious who it was and why they were doing it. It was still interesting to see how that then actually motivated their actions to appear in the way that they did. So, as always with Noelle W. Ihli, I really enjoyed this. I blast through her works, they are so much fun. Then for something a little unusual, The Little White Town of Never Weary by Jessie M. King. My aeroplane. This book is based upon the town of Kirkcudbright in southwest Scotland, which is where my mum and her family are all from. I'd wanted to pick it up for a long while, and it's not the cheapest to get a copy of this. This was £22, so I had put it off, but I just decided, screw it, I really want to read it. I want to read something that is set in Kirkcudbright by someone who lived in Kirkcudbright, so I picked it up, I spent the £22, and I really enjoyed this. It is a kids book, so it is nice and easy to get through. But it also, I feel like, has so much wasted potential in that people could and would have loved this. If this had gotten popular in lockdown, oh my fucking god. The author has instructions in this book on how to make cardboard 3D models of what is actually Kukubri, and it has instructions on how to make it, as well as a story that goes along with each of the buildings and the characters that King has written to be inside of them. The story itself is really enjoyable and really fun, but on top of that I feel like if I had had this when I was younger, they even have pictures of some of the models made at the end. If I'd had this when I was younger, me and my mum, when I was like 9, oh, we would have spent hours doing this. This is just so massively underrated. It was so enjoyable to read. Very much niche, but if you have kids and they enjoy actually physically doing arts and crafts, I know it's less common these days, I really recommend, genuinely. It is just a fun little story, and the arts and crafts are simultaneously easy enough to do but surprisingly complex. And this was just so enjoyable. I loved recognising places that I knew from Kukubri, because of course, whilst I haven't lived there myself, I do know the town quite well, and it was just, this is treasured in my collection now. Back to book break again, and this one is How to Resist Guilt by Mona Chollet. This is translated from French and is a non-fiction all about what's holding women back, but also societal issues and how they are impacting everyone. This was so fucking good. Just saying, loved this. So good, so good. We are all cardboard feminists. Do it or die. These words in your head. Don't be yourself. And do you not know that you are an Eve? The chapter titles that I saw whilst flicking through there. This is really insightful, really modern. It also makes sure to be intersectional and include people of different ethnicities, of different races, and also of different sexualities in the discussion, and how they are also impacted. And also how this impacts just everyone, not just women. This was just so, I can't recommend this enough. If you are at all interested in the topic, it's just so good. And whilst this does focus on women, on the back, on the synopsis, it says, many of us battle a relentless inner critic that whispers to us we are unworthy or inadequate. And I do think that this is appropriate for anyone that has that issue, not just those of the female persuasion. Then I read the penultimate Discworld book, Raising Steam by Terry Pratchett, book number 40 in the Discworld series, and this one is the introduction of the steam train, the iron railway, to Discworld. As always, I love the new addition into Discworld and learning more about things. We have a new race, goblins, who are introduced to the world, and the way that Terry does so is always really nuanced, really well written, lots of commentary on society, so I very much appreciate that. And we are following Moist von Lipwig in this one, so if you enjoy his books you can see the nonsense that happens there, but as always with Pratchett, it's a great commentary on the introduction of the railway, on what it has done, will do to towns who do and do not adopt it. Fantastic as always. Then I read The Drowning King by Emily Holleman, and this is the second book in the duology of Cleopatra's Shadow, all about Arsinoe, one of Cleopatra's siblings, her younger sister. I believe she had one older sister, one older stillborn sister, then herself, then Arsinoe, and then Ptolemy, and then Ptolemaeus, which were both younger brothers, I believe. And this is a fictionalised account following primarily Ptolemy and Arsinoe as Cleopatra is ruling and having these links with Rome and with Caesar. This was a really interesting book, and as you will see later on, I read 2 books about Cleopatra and this time frame in ancient Egypt this month, and so the facts of them both are slightly melding in together, but I will say that this was really enjoyable. The pacing was fantastic. I was really engrossed in what was going on. We get 2 different viewpoints of Arsinoe and of Ptolemy, so of Cleopatra's sister and her brother, and seeing how they both differently interpret what Cleopatra is doing, partly because of their gender expectations and also because of how they were raised and who they are as people, and how that impacts how they then react. This is a really good trilogy. I really enjoyed it. I love reading about ancient Egypt, even if I don't do so anywhere near enough. Then I translated Japanese fiction, and that is The Vanishing Cherry Blossom Bookshop by Takuya Asakura, translated by Yuka Maeno. And this one is, we have this little Vanishing Cherry Blossom Bookshop, quelle surprise. Like so many of these translated Japanese fictions, this is all about dealing with your inner sadness when certain events have come to pass, and how being able to talk to people, whether that is the people involved or just discuss what's going on, can be very, very helpful in processing the information and coming to a better place mentally with it. This did make me cry at one point, so I'm going to mention a specific content warning for Alzheimer's and that whole band of things. That still does make me cry after my gran passed from that. However, loved this as expected. It was beautiful, really well written. Each chapter is following a different person as they then go into the bookshop. So what happens, I should fucking explain, is that the people read a part of a book, and in the bookshop the girl who runs it is also reading the same part of the same book, and that allows them to connect over the different realms of the magical realm versus the real one. Then with the lovely Eleanor from Eleanor Nichpater, we buddy read The Rosefield by Philip Pullman, which is the third and final book in the Book of Dust trilogy, which is the carry-on series from the His Dark Materials trilogy, following Lyra and Pan. This book has both good and bad. So the good is that I feel like it was much better paced than the previous book. I was enjoying learning more about the world building and developing further information about that as we go along. The characters, we were getting a lot more information about that, and it was just paced much better and I was having a much better time. But unfortunately, there were negatives to this book as well. So, first of all, I don't want to spoil anything. I've had to refilm this so many times. There is a big plot event in this book, and me and Eleanor specifically, as many other readers also will, were hoping it would happen sooner so that we could see more of the after reaction to this occurring. We know it's going to occur and we'd like to see more of what happens once it occurs, and it does not happen until the final chapter of the book in the series. So that was really fucking annoying. Additionally, there's too many loose ends. We have plot loose ends and also character loose ends. People that were introduced to move the plot along, different plot points that were introduced to try and make sense of certain actions that characters were taking. And some of these were very minor, just the occasional glimpse here and there of different people, different plots. But some of them actually had grounding and we saw a fair amount of them, and we just never got any sort of understanding for why certain events occurred, why characters acted the way that they did, even though it had a huge impact on our main character Lyra and what she was doing. And it was just so unsatisfying, and not in a good way. There are so many times where I've read a book and it has an ambiguous ending, and you can then, you know, think yourself of what then occurs. And this was not that. This, I can think myself, sure, but I need to know what they did canonically for that to then have an impact on what I could think for myself of what happens to Lyra later on, of me understanding why what happened to Lyra happened. And it's just not explained. It's infuriating. It is much better than book 2, and I'm glad of that, but it does not wrap things up the way that it needed to for this book to make sense. There are too many loose ends, too many characters just floating in the ether, and I was really disappointed by this. But I had a lovely time buddy reading it with Eleanor, and that did improve both the reading experience and the book, getting to discuss it with each other, so I will find the positives where I can get them. Then I went for a non-fiction book, and that is Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tulleken. This book is all about the additional processing that happens in our modern food market and how this impacts our bodies, but also can be very hard to escape. I have seen some people online, I didn't look into it because I didn't want to be spoiled for the non-fiction, but there are some people online that have issues with this book, so I do plan to go and look those up and see what they dislike about it. I do think that some of the points in this book are a little overemphasised for the amount of evidence that we currently have. However, it is still interesting to think about all of the additional processing that happens to our food, the fact that there are so many ingredients in our food that we know where it comes from, but you've taken the nutrients and you've distilled it down to the individual elements and you've put it back into the food for it to have a better shelf life, or for it to appeal to the palate more, but it doesn't have the same elements as the original food did as a whole, and so you don't get as much of what you should do out of that food. And that does have some scientific basis in the references and stuff in the back. And the fact that this is so prevalent in food now, And partly that is because in food poor areas, for example, this then allows things to have a more stable shelf life, to last longer, to be cheaper to produce and to send out, and so that does allow people in food deserts and who have money scarcity issues to be able to purchase more food and eat. Always a good thing, but it does then mean that our bodies are getting the chemical signifiers for certain events and are then not getting the events. So someone mentioned, it was Pringles specifically, that the umami that they have in there is, it comes from something specific, I can't remember what, and your body is expecting that, it's expecting nourishing food, and instead has a, I'm paraphrasing, but they said something along the lines of a sad ball of carbohydrate in your stomach instead. So this was very interesting. It did make me think a lot about what I eat and why I'm eating it. So I do want to look more into it because I'm not 100% sure that this is scientifically valid in the way that it wants to be. But it is very interesting and it does get you thinking about what you're eating and why everything is so processed. So, a very interesting read. Another very interesting one, The Traveller by Joseph Eckert. This one was sent to me by the lovely folks over at Book Break. A time travel book. We are following a man who suddenly jumps forward 24 hours. He's driving in his car to work, this is set in the States, and he suddenly is falling and scraping along the asphalt on the highway, I don't know what they have over there, and the car's gone. He then tries to contact people. He's just been in a car crash. He's like, right, where's my wife? Where's my boss? What's going on? And he discovers that the car was crashed because he had disappeared out of it. And he's been gone for a day and he has no memory of this. And it turns out, he then discovers as time goes on, that his jumping forward in time is doubling each and every time. So the next day he jumps forward 48 hours. He has no way of controlling it. He has no way of stopping it. And he ends up leaving his wife and his son behind. And for them, it is decades before they see him occasionally on some of the jumps, but for him it has been a fortnight, and his son is grown up and is close to death himself. His wife has passed, and this has all come out of nowhere for him, but for them they have had decades to acclimatise. And we're following this man as he tries to come to terms with this. He tries to survive because, of course, the further you jump, the more he jumps, the further he's jumping, and so we go past any sort of known human existence and we end up far in the future, and it's a very interesting take on what that future could be and how it fluctuates. I thought that was really interestingly done. I really enjoyed how Eckert decided to interpret how the future could go, and it was also a very interesting look at humanity, at religion, at faith, whether that is in a higher deity or whether that is in the people around you. I was really into this one. I was up reading it at night time, having to force myself to put it down and go to bed because I am an adult with a job, and I just really, really enjoyed this. It was very addictive, as Gareth Brown, author of The Book of Doors, which I also enjoyed, says. This was just, I couldn't put it down. It was really good. Another book that was really good, and that is Cleopatra by Saara El-Arifi. Now, I am going to look this up so that I get the narrator's name correct. But it's Ojoa Ando, who most folks will know from Bridgerton, and her voice is perfection for this. So, as I said, this is another Cleopatra book. I read 2 this month. This book, instead of following Arsinoe or Ptolemy, in fact follows Cleopatra herself from fairly young before she becomes pharaoh until the end of her days. This is a fantastical reimagining. There are some fantastical and magical elements in here, but it also does pull as much as possible from what we have in the written history, which of course is biased towards the Romans, who weren't the biggest fan of Cleopatra. So Saara El-Arifi has manipulated this and worked with it, so you can't take it as a fact, but also all of the historical accounts are biased anyway. But it's a very interesting narration of one possibility with some fantastical elements of her life and her as a person, and having read it not long after The Drowning King and seeing her interpreted by a different author, but also through the lens of her younger siblings, it was then fascinating to see her being portrayed from a different author through her own lens, and this was just amazing. Ojoa was perfect to narrate this book. Oh my dear God, I was completely engrossed. It was so interesting. This, I cannot recommend it enough. I have this gorgeous Goldsboro edition which, oh, wait, ah, it's beautiful. And this is just other than the fantasy elements, which are minor and woven in, a very realistic portrayal of Cleopatra and her relationships with Caesar, with Mark Antony, with her children, and with the people around her. There is also a little bit of a sapphic element in here. This is just so good, so beautiful, and has solidified for me how much I love Saara El-Arifi's writing. It's beautiful, I love this, and I can't recommend it enough. Then we're on to the final two books, both sent to me by the lovely folks over at Tor. First up we have an Adrian Tchaikovsky book, and that is Green City Wars. This is a standalone, and I've put this down as fantasy, but it is also sci-fi, as I think you can tell if you can see by the skyscrapers. So this is a futuristic world where humans no longer have to do menial tasks like rubbish collecting, cleaning the streets, etc., because they have genetically engineered, this is all the sci-fi bit, and then we go into fantasy, animals to do this for them. And we are following, in this book, a raccoon that has been sent over from the US to Europe. This is set in Germany, I do believe. And there are quite a few German words that I use to describe the fantastical and sci-fi elements in here that, if you have any knowledge of Germanic languages, are interesting little tidbits to add into the story. But it's also something that Tchaikovsky hasn't done before, so I found that very interesting. And yes, this raccoon has been sent over from the States because they're good at garbage disposal, and is sent over as part of a corporation. He works with them, and he chooses to leave and become freelance and ends up as a PI, and he is hired back by the corporation that he escaped to find a mouse who is on the run, and different people want him for different reasons. Some want him dead, some want him alive, some want him captured, some want to work with him, and it's about our raccoon PI trying to figure out who he thinks is in the right and what he actually wants to do when he completes this job, which he's been genetically engineered to carry out this task, and he's gonna fucking do it. And whilst this is silly, we have Scotch, the raccoon PI, trying to find this mouse, Dr. Meese, and he's exploring all of these different worlds and the behind the scenes of them, trying to, you know, run everything that the humans do, the water, the waste, the electricity. And the humans can never see them, they always have to be hidden. But it's also a discussion on self-determination, on corporate control of the autonomy of a person and how that can have a huge impact, on the restriction of substances, for example food and water, that are required for us to live and yet are controlled by corporations, and a discussion on what it means to be, I want to say human, but conscious, to have a soul. It is fun, it is silly, it is thought-provoking, it is interesting, the mystery is really well done, and I had a great time with this. No one is surprised. I will admit, it took me a little longer to get into. We all know I love Tchaikovsky, so I was expecting to boomf, and it took me a little longer. It took me past page 200? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it took me past page 200 to really delve into this and feel like I was obsessed with it, which is much longer than I usually take to get into it, and yet I'm still here telling you I loved it. So, just saying, this one was slower to get into, but a wonderful time. And then another one, so maybe this was just me at the end of the month, because I was also slow to get into this one, and then fucking loved it, and that is Mortedant's Peril by R.J. Barker. This is another fantasy mystery, and in this one we are following a Mortedant, which is someone who can touch the dead and see their last moments, and he does this as a job to figure out murders, to settle estates, things like that. And he is not very liked in his community. So he's doing this job, and he has a neophyte, I think they're called, which is an apprentice, and his neophyte is murdered. And he is determined to find out and maybe not get revenge, but get justice, both for his apprentice but also because he is being blamed for the murder and he would like to not die. This ends up with found family, with betrayal, with discoveries of the mystery, with learning more about this society and this world. It's the first book in a series, so it really is setting up for you to learn more about the world. And the twist in this for the mystery, I was physically gasping out loud when I got to that bit near the end. I was like, oh my god! As I was reading it, it was really well done. It is a bit of a slow build up to it, but I ended up loving the Mortedant, loving his new assistant, and it's also then provided a guard by the people who run the Mortedant's community, both to keep an eye on him and also to keep him safe. And the little found family that they make, the discoveries that they make because of each other and what they learn about each other is just really well done, really enjoyable, and I had a fantastic time with this book. Again, both of them took me a little while to get into. Maybe I had a book hangover from how fantastic Cleopatra and the Traveller both were. That is potentially what happened there, because I did love both of these, but it took me a while to get into them. So I think that might have been me. Interesting. But regardless, those are, if I can lift them, the books that I read in May. Please do let me know down below if you have read any of these, if you plan to read any of them. I am here to discuss the books. I was expecting to have a more chill month and then did not have a more chill month because I had a lot of arcs that I needed to get to. So I'm very glad that I managed to finish off everything that I hoped. I had a very interesting month. I drove solo on the motorway for the first time in my life. 88 miles each way, or 140 kilometres. Also my glasses died. I don't wear these very often in my videos because the light reflects off of them. These are not my current glasses. These glasses are 5 or 6 years old. My current glasses just split down the middle and fell off my face. So I'm having fun with that. This prescription is very old, so I can't really see that well. So that had a dampener on my reading. I also had 2 job interviews, the feedback from both. I visited my parents. It has been a month, but I'm taking these off, I can't deal with them. But I had a great time with my reading, so yes, please do let me know if you have read any of these as well, so we can have a chat about them down below, and hopefully I'll have a bit more of a chill and relaxed time in June. We shall see. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!